Hi, and welcome back to Continual. Tonight, we're going to be doing our LGBTQIA roundup with some fantastic authors and friends of the show. I am your host, Jim Nettles. But before we get started, let's go around the room and see who has all decided to join us this evening. Richard, you're up first.
Hi, I'm Richard Fife, the author of Conflict Born, a gaslamp fantasy that features a LGBTQ romance and is available from Falstaff Books.
Miski?
Hi, I'm Miski Harris, contemporary romance author, also known as the author of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell series, and a few other books.
Shane?
I am Shane Morton. I write gay romance, LGBT general fiction, YA, and a little bit of paranormal and quite a bit of mystery. And my biggest series, I guess, would be the Drag Queen Detective series.
And TL?
TL Travis, mostly write rockstar romance, but I have some contemporary and paranormal in there too, and some female as well.
So let's kind of start working our way around. Let's actually get a start a little bit about, kind of some of the things that you write, your series, what's inspired some of the work that you do. So Richard, we'll actually start with you. How did you decide to go with a male romance or go with the romance that's in this series?
So with Conflict Born, it features a bisexual woman of color and a lesbian for her romantic interest. And it was pretty much inspired. While I am not personally a member of the LGBTQ community, I have a lot of friends that are, and it just kind of organically grew from wanting to do something different. Wanting to not just have the same old boring stuff and have some representation and treat them like humans instead of tropes. So it was kind of a bit of a challenge to myself that I ended up really enjoying, and wrote a whole book with that included it.
Miski, how about you? What's inspired you in a lot of the series that you write? Let's talk a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit more.
I'm an Air Force veteran, and I was in the Air Force during the time when it was 100% illegal to be homosexual. And I was still in when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was trying to make its way through. I had friends who were gay and lesbian. I was actually raised by a lesbian woman. I am a flaming hetero. But as I sat down and decided, wow, this is my time, now I can write, I wanted to tell their stories because I just wasn't, a lot like Richard, I really wanted something different. I wanted people to read my books and say, do I know that person? I've actually had a couple of people DM me about one of my characters and ask me, is this, and I've had to say no, but that's where my inspiration started. And now I just have lots of characters running around in my head, and I tell their stories. The rest are not all military. I've actually done a paranormal. I'm getting ready to do a Grimm's fairy tale, which is I've been having a lot of fun with. So mostly my big thing is bringing life and love and even faith to the forefront without all the mishigash.
Shane, how about you?
I write autobiographies most of the time. No, I'm just kidding. I
really knew you had that detective in you.
I am not a flaming hetero. I am a queen in training. I it kind of depends on what I'm writing. Like my general, more of my, what I consider a general fiction and YA, a lot of that actually does come from experiences that I've had growing up in a small southern town. That's really always kind of been a big part of my writing. But depending on what it is I'm doing, I just find it important as a gay man to tell stories about the LGBTQIA life, because I don't feel like there's never enough. There's thousand stories for every one story written, that talks about heterosexuality and the life of someone heteronormative. And I feel like it's important to tell the stories of everyone, especially right now. I mean, I'm with my drag queen detective books, and a character in there that is transgender. I feel like there's not really enough transgender stories out in the world that really, talks about them truthfully and honestly. And so I have been writing more of those recently. But yeah, I mean, I fell into this because it really is what I knew. I was writing stories about myself at first, so.
TL?
With my stories, no, I'm not a flaming heterosexual either. But as a bisexual woman, I think it's very important to prove to people that it's not a pick and choose with us. It's not a phase that we're going through. And I think it's very important for my bisexual characters to show that as well. A lot of these are dominant men or women who've, known all their life of heterosexuality and never thought a second about a same-sex relationship in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of like to have it smack them upside the head, and go, whoa, okay, didn't expect that, didn't see that coming. I don't want it just to be a la la la, oh, I picked that one. It doesn't work that way. That's not real life. And I try to throw in as much real life as I can. And I'm an avid concert goer. I love heavy metal and I listen to it a lot, which is what's drawn so many bands from me. I can listen to a lyric and all of a sudden something will kick off and I've got a story going. But along with like Shane, I try to include as much real life as I can and show people, this isn't, as someone so recently put to me, a birth defect to be a member of the community. Needless to say, that conversation didn't go well for them. But this is real. People were born this way, and they were born this way for a reason. It wasn't just, at birth, let's push a button and that's what that one's going to be. It doesn't work that way. If you believe in your God created everyone with the reason behind why that person was created.
Exactly.
It's not a mistake. And I try to include that as often as I can.
Well, and so we are going into Pride Month. And so one of the things I really want to talk about, and I think that we've got an opportunity here, is how do we create more of that representation in stories? And when we look at and talk about the idea that we want to create representation, also, not being, being a flaming hetero, as Richard said, but having a lot of friends in the community.
Not Richard.
It was Miski.
That was Miski.
Okay, Miski, I'll blame you then. But
I wish I said it.
I was trying to remember what you said, but it's been a long, rough day. But how do we, for somebody like myself, I have a lot of friends in the community. I have a lot of conversations, but how can we go about writing these stories? Because again, one of the large debates we often have is own stories and own voices, but yet we want to create representation. And this is one of those things that we always have as a challenge. So I think with this group here, it's a good opportunity to see what you guys think. How do we approach this? For guys like me that are trying to make sure we are being representative of our communities and of the communities of the stories that we're telling. So Miski, how about you?
It's interesting that you asked me, because I was just thinking about this today. very good friend of mine who lives in another country just came out to his parents, and it didn't go well. When we're growing up, there's lots of little girl stories who want to be princesses and little boy stories who want to be cowboys. But in the community of color, there are not enough stories that show that you can be a man and have a life. You can even be a man of faith. That being gay is as much a part of all of that and who you are as being, as I call it, a flaming hetero is to me. It's not a choice. And one of the people that two of the people that I try to remember hard when I write, one is my aunt, because she was out in the 50s. That was dangerous. And the more I know about what I didn't know back then, the more respect I gained for who she was. Because she was willing to stand down a lot and live her truth. The other one is a little sad. I had a boyfriend when I was 16. His name was Dennis, and I broke up with Dennis. And all the kids accused me of turning Dennis gay. Now, considering the gay agenda, I wish I had that power, because boy, would I fix a few things. But in the meantime, I think I always suspected that Dennis was gay. And I didn't know what he was at the time, because, you know, who's smart at 16? But I just knew he wasn't being himself. And that was the environment that I was growing up in. So I want my books to show that real men of color are gay and live real lives. They have hurts and failures and successes, just like everybody else. And because it's romance, of course, they have a happy ever after. But as Tammy will tell you, I like breaking rules. I actually once killed a puppy. And
now, wait a minute.
It wasn't as
yeah.
bad as she makes it sound. It wasn't that bad. I thought it was going to be. It was not that bad.
I warned you that it was not going to be bad. You guys made me put that horrible trigger. Anyway, but I often, because happy ever after is for fairy tales. Life is really happy for now, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I can tell you with all honesty that you can go to bed next to the person you love and wake up and find them dead. So I try to portray that reality in my stories. It makes them a lot more dramatic, but I'm really trying to reach those young men and young women who either don't know or think they do know and need to know the truth.
Shane, how about you?
Let me just say that, Miski, I agree 1,000%. Happy Ever After is a fantasy. It is a fantasy that romance is completely entrenched in and based in, and I get that. And that's why I really love writing my general fiction books, because they're more life. You know, it's more an honest answer to what we all go through on a day-to-day basis. I, of course, don't sell very many of them, but I enjoy writing them. That's always kind of my passion project. I put out, try to put out one a year for my own soul in terms of doing something like that. But, you know, when it comes to writing LGBTQ characters, if you're going to write them honestly and you're going to write them with love, we always have room for you at our table. I am an own voices author, as gay as they can possibly get. And I, you know, the fact that I live in a world growing up in Kentucky where there was no one writing about LGBT stories. I had nothing until I found Armistead Maupin's Tales of the City, right? Like I didn't have anything really that gave me a book to be able to open up and see myself in. And now, I mean, there is a plethora of wealth because of, God, I hate to say it, but Amazon and independent publishing. And, you know, we now have stories that tell about the lives of LGBT characters. I mean, the amount of books that come out monthly is outstanding. You can't, I don't see how people can read them all. It's amazing. Some people do. But like, you know, how wonderful that is that we live in a time now that we actually have so many stories written about us. I mean, if I could have had 12-year-old Shane have something like that, I might have turned out a lot differently at some point in time. You know, I'm fine now, but 18, 19-year-old Shane had to struggle because he had to, there was nothing out there that really was about him, you know, and now it's great. We have so much. I really find my heart, I love writing romance. I love writing paranormal romance. I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy the tropes that we, you know, find ourselves writing in. I like Hallmark movies, so I enjoy the tropes. But my heart is always, I don't write very many of them because of that, but YA books and general fiction are really, I think, where a lot of my heart lies, just because of the honesty that you really can tell about the lives of the characters, because it doesn't have to be that happy ever ending. It can be a happy for now with maybe a little bit of a seeing the turn that might be happening, that maybe it's not going to be happy for now. And they're just getting through the moment as best they can. You know, I do like those books, and I think I've completely lost the question now, but
Well, it's
how long are we into this? Can I say it now? No, I'm kidding. I'm going to save it for
I think
later.
you did good.
I thought so, but I did lose the question too, but it
Well,
was good.
it's really the question of, from a writer's standpoint, is how, you know, how do we go about bringing in and integrating the stories of people we all know and the struggles you go through. I mean, because
Well, Jim, I think that's part of the answer right there, right? People we all know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Not everyone knows they know,
right.
and not everyone is accepting that they know. You know, but if you're, for the most part, if you are writing, I would hope in today's society, if you're actually putting LGBTQIA characters in your books, you're writing them because you do know. You know, you've done your research, you have incredibly good friends, you there's tons of ways that you can experience that life, you know, immersing yourself in it for a little bit, getting to know people, getting to see people. But when it comes to actually like getting people to, you have, you know, if you don't know, you know, which is why coming out is so important to the world right now, right? Like every time someone comes out, now more people know someone who's LGBTQIA. And that helps expand their worldview. I mean, before I came out, I'm not sure my brother knew any LGBTQIA people. So I think just living authentically and being who you are, and searching if you don't know anybody, you know, that is kind of the best way of doing that. So there, that kind of answered the question now.
I grew up in the birthplace of of pride. So I think it's I just live for the day when you 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 don't have to say, you don't have to explain. I really live for the day when my granddaughter can bring her girlfriend home and, you know, this is my girlfriend. Um, and we don't have to get into the whole explanation of where we are on the spectrum. Are we poly? Are we this? Are we that? I I live for the day when we just are. I probably won't live long enough to see it, but I live for that day.
TL, how about you? Anything to add to that?
Well, you know, it's a catch-22, and that sucks too. I mean, that people had to hide. I knew at 12 that I liked girls, and my mother knew at 12 I liked girls, which is why a particular girl wasn't allowed around anymore when my mother figured that out. So it took me until I was 40 to say, screw this. This is me. This is who I am. If you don't like it, there's the door. But it doesn't work that way for everybody. There are far too many families that aren't accepting, that aren't understanding, who don't know how to do a decent Google search, because there's many of them out there that can help them and many that can draw them in the wrong direction. And they're closing the doors to those that they loved until they heard one particular word, I'm gay, or 2 words, sorry, I'm gay. How can those 2 words tear a family apart? Yet they do. And it shouldn't be that way. And I think it's important in our stories, while we do mostly write romance, that we do put those true to life pieces in there. It's important for them to read them. And even though some of us, myself included, aren't living our happily ever after, we're just living our happy for now, that there's always a possibility that the one right person is out there for you. There's always that hope. And in the times when I'm most down, I turn to a happy romance. I want to see that there is happiness somewhere, even if it's only in the pages of a book. It helps bring me back up. And if our books can reach that one child, just that one single child, bring them out of their shell, have them speak their truth and live their life the way it's meant to be lived for them, then we as authors have done our job. We've done our due diligence. Because back to what Shane and Miski said, every single one of us knows at least one person who flies under the flag, whether it be ourselves or another. And it really sucks that it has to be called out that way, that you have to go, hey, I'm gay, hey, I'm bi, you know what, I might be pan or demi. Why? Why does anyone have a right to tell us what goes on in our bedrooms? They don't want us standing in their room critiquing them. You know what, hey, you did that wrong. No, turn her around the other way. Well, wait a second, that's upside down. They don't want us to do that to them. Why should they do that to the rest of us? We shouldn't have to say who we are. And it's still a double-edged sword, because I could walk down the street holding hands with another girl and we're going to get catcalls. 2 gay guys walk down the street holding hands and they're going to get groans and a lot of negative publicity right then and there.
Right.
So it's still a double-edged sword. And I don't understand it. It shouldn't matter. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's nobody's business. As long as it's legal between 2 consenting adults, nobody has a right to say anything that they still do, because they've taken on that complex of the God syndrome or judge and jury and executioner, when it's not up to them to decide any of this. Everyone is here for a reason with a purpose. Whether or not you ever find out what that is, who knows? But you need to put your best foot forward and always be the best person and reach out and try to help others. And as authors, that's our job.
Yes.
Richard?
You know,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Miski.
one of the reasons all of my books are interracial is because I'm biracial. I'm actually triracial. I'm a coyote. And so using those characters is kind of healing for me, because I was the child nobody wanted. You know, I was an adult before I met half of my mother's family, because I was too light. Then I developed thyroid disease, and the medicine darkens your skin. And I realized people really don't think when they talk to you. I had a cousin ask me, how in the hell did you get so Black? I said, well, I was half done when I was born. My mother was afraid a white woman would kidnap me, so she put me back in the oven. I mean, people just don't, they have to have somebody to hate. You know, remember when people used to, up until when Roots came out, I thought if I heard one more person tell me most, you know, a lot of I have Black friends, you know, I just thought I'd stab them if I heard that one more time. And I think that's where we are in the community now. So like, I agree with Tammy, it's our job to produce those books that are not titillating, but bring the truth out there, you know, and real life. Like, I don't write erotic scenes. I've had people tell me that's a bold choice. Fortunately, I don't have to write for the rent, so I guess it is. But there's a difference between love and sex. And that's something else that, because if you ask the average heterosexual male, what's his first thought when he thinks of two gay men? It's the sex. Like, the only life they have is in bed. And that's not true. Quite frankly, some of the things that I've read in some of these romance books are anatomically impossible. I'm a nurse, I can tell you. It just can't happen. So I agree with you, Tammy. It's our job to tell the truth as we know it. Sorry, Mitch.
Richard?
Yeah, so yeah, honestly, like right before this panel, I was even like, do I belong on here? As a flaming hetero. And it's still something I wrestle with, because I want to try and do well in my representation. I have sensitivity readers that I have read my book for to tell me, am I getting something wrong? Did something not ring right? Was I horribly insensitive in some spot? And I, fortunately, they are good enough friends that there's safety and trust between us, that they can tell me if I got something wrong. I've been consuming media that is LGBTQ. Right now I'm watching The Owl House and absolutely loving it. And I think another important thing when it comes to writing, as someone who's not part of the community, as I'm writing into it, I want to try and make sure I can write things that I feel I have the ability to be authentic with. I did not have to ever go through something comparable to coming out. And that's so my stories aren't going to include that as a main during the story action. My characters are older, and when they realize that when I'm writing the romance between them, it is just, it's not remarkable in the, oh, we're both the same sex. It's, okay, no, I got the butterflies in my tummy when you're around. What's going on? Oh, I'm trying to write them as people that are further in their journey and can have this just more, I guess, being able to, they're both in their truth, I guess. Yeah, they're both being able to say that, no, this is who I am, and I am going to not feel, there's a little bit of the, there's still the, is this person interested in me or not, but it is just, I'm trying to write it more as on that level. Another short story I just wrote actually is, I kind of got around this. It's a sci-fi and deals with people that have virtual assistants, little AI, like basically Siri AIs, and the AIs subvertly are just bluntly talking to each other and being like, hey, any chance your human might be interested?
Oh, I like that.
And
Actually,
and the humans have no clue. The AIs have decided this amongst themselves as a community that they're going to help their humans out. And if there's a human that is, it's like, oh, that there's someone who might be interested. I'll just subtly start highlighting things on the HUD to draw my human's attention.
What's the name of this book?
That is a short story I just started writing. I'm hoping I'm going to submit it to the Mocha Memoirs Press. Call for submissions. That's out right now.
Hook a sister up. Rich, I want to say something to you because you've said it twice now. As allies, which is what we are as much a part of the community as anybody else. One of the most provocative books written on the Black experience is a book called Black Like Me. The author was a white man who shaved his head and with the help of a friend who was a chemist, turned his skin dark, went down into the segregated South and put his story together by immersion. We don't necessarily make the news, but we report it. The thing that helped the furtherance of people of color and their rights and constitutional amendments were allies. Anytime you go to war, it's not just about you and who you're fighting, it's who your allies are. So not only do you belong, you are essential.
very much so.
Because you're that voice that says, they're not crazy. That's my friend. Back off.
And I think something you said earlier, Miski, and I disagree I agree 100% with it, is that, we're all a part of the same community, even though we have our own smaller communities around it, but we're all still a part of the same human community, right? Our experiences really aren't that different. And Richard, we have a seat at the table for you whenever you want it. But we, the way I love is absolutely the feelings I get and all of that. It really isn't any really different, right? Like a human experience is a human experience, and an honest human experience is going to be an honest human experience, no matter if the character is straight, bi, gay, lesbian, transgender. Each of those comes with other things, of course, right? That can be put upon it, but the actual feelings that we all have are all the same feelings. I think it's wonderful when we can start looking at ourselves as just a part of this one human condition that we're all writing about and telling stories about. That condition, like any character, changes with the character, but the basic stuff is always the same. It's the way a human feels.
Well, and that actually kind of goes to the next place I wanted to dive into a little bit, because again, the stories we tell, whether you're, and again, because most everyone here is writing romance, but whether you're writing contemporary romance, whether it's historical, whether you're writing something in a far-flung future, at the end of the day, every story is about the characters. It's about the experience. It's about the challenges, the trials, the tribulations that you put them into and how they respond. And like you were saying, Shane, like you were saying, Miski, sexuality is this piece of life. It's an important piece of life and an important piece of identity, but for the most part, it's not something that is overriding and driving for most people. There are people, so when you're looking at and creating characters and story, most of it is life. And I think it is about how do we go about saying, it is just the experience and it is just about the life, but there are still importances in the people we care about. There are importances in the relationships we build. There is importance in those things, and how we go about and have those experiences. I think on what I've read, of the things of LGBTQIA fiction, what I've read, often what's most important and has resonated most with me is, what are the different challenges you face, often because of things that should not matter to anyone else. And Shane, I know you explore this a lot in your own work. So when you look at this, are you looking at this exploration for yourself, from an educational standpoint, from an entertainment standpoint, all of the above? What is it you really hope to come out of your work and your exploration along those lines?
Always, identity is really important to me. The experience that our identity changes and fluctuates on a daily basis, much less a yearly basis or a decade basis. I mean, who I was at 20 is very different than who I was at 30 and who I was at 40 and 50. I'm just hanging in there at this point. But you know what I mean? Like I always find that the exploration of identity is something that is universal. Everyone can kind of understand that. And I think that as a gay man, usually my identity was told to me and not allowed for me to figure it out myself. And especially growing up and going through puberty, and you go to, there's all these expectations of what you are supposed to do and be. And I really love exploring the way a character has to wrap themselves around that and then figure out who they actually are. I think my YA books and my general fiction books really do explore that much more than my romance books do, though even though a lot of my romance books kind of touch upon it at least a lot. My drag queen detective book is really all about identity, because this person is trying to cope with 3 different identities, but yet they're all kind of a part of who they are, but they only allow one to come out at a time, even though the others are really there backing them up to create the whole. But it's something we all have, and it's to begin with. I'm very different with my family than I am with my friends, than I am with my colleagues at work. I have a different identity in each place. But yet all of those identities really do make up the being I am. Did I get off topic again? Oh,
no, actually, I think that hits it dead on, which is the idea that the identity we present with friends and family is very different from the identity we present at work or in other environments. And I think that the ability to explore that is critical as a writer, because, I know who I am, and I agree 100%, in my old cantankerous age, which started about the age of 3, and has gotten progressively worse. But, my ability as a writer to go and explore characters and people, the people that I'm more interested in are the people that I'm not. How do I explore something that I'm not? But often, again, it's based on people that I know, people that are friends, sometimes that are family. And that kind of an exploration to me is really important, because, again, the reason we write is to explore those parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily have. So no, I think you nailed it dead on, is this idea of exploration of identity and community. I don't know, TL, do you have anything to kind of add to that?
No, it's pretty much the same. Like every one of my books have at least one thing that's happened to me, but I'm a woman writing as a man. So how can that be? Easy, because we're all the same. You know, I hate to compare humans to animals, but it's the same too. You know, like if you shut somebody out, they're going to be hurt. You know, if you let them in, then they've got to watch it. You have to assume a different identity with everything you do. And it's unfortunate because if they look at a male-female relationship, they're going to see all the exact same things going on as what goes on in a same-sex relationship. The two are the same. It shouldn't matter if it's 2 men, 2 women, 1 man, 1 woman, or 2 men and 1 woman. Everything's going to be the same. Everything that they're going to go through in their relationship, the stuff you're going to go through in your relationship. So you can't just say, well, they're not meant to be together. God said, man shall not lay with man. Well, dive into that a little bit further. That's not the interpretation. You're choosing it to be your own way because they're doing the same thing as you. We're one way with our family. We're one way with our friends. We're one way with our partners, just as they are. So it doesn't matter if the relationship is same sex or if it's male female, you're still going to have the different identities as well. And it just shouldn't matter. And it's right now, it feels like we're kind of going backwards 10, 15 years when we were so far ahead. And why again? Because there's humans who think they have superpowers that need to control everything for everybody else. Stop controlling and just let people be. And you're going to have a lot less outbursts. If you're trying to control somebody and make them be what you want them to be, that's only going to last so long. Because the truth will out. They're going to have to be true to themselves or they're not going to make it. And I'm telling you right now, that's why the suicide rate is so high. Because you're forcing others to be how you want them to be. You're forcing their identity, much as a marriage gets forced. You know, you need to marry this person so that this and this and this happens. It's like an arranged marriage when you're forcing someone to be something that they're not. It's not going to go well. It's not going to last long. But then again, all the same issues would happen if it was 2 guys forced in together, 2 females forced in together. I just don't understand why identity need to be chosen for others. We're not choosing for you. Don't choose for us. But if we go into work one day and we're just dressed like, you know, we just came from the club, that's not going to go over well. So you have to assume a different identity then, but you're making the choice to do so. Somebody else isn't necessarily making it for you, but you just know right from wrong. I don't know if that helps, if I just drew y'all backwards, but it's just the way that I see it. You know, a forced identity is much like a forced marriage.
And we all have, and the spectrum is wide and huge.
Yes.
Not every gay man is alike. Not every straight man is alike. Not every woman is, you know, like we all, there's a huge difference between everyone
Yes.
in that identity. We all have small groups that make up the large group that makes up the larger group, you know.
No, I agree.
Agreed.
Richard?
So being the one person here that I guess doesn't explicitly write in the romance genre, I write science fiction fantasy. I went in to tell a good story. And part of how I write my books is I always kind of do a character map that is about the relationships. Like, how does this character relate to this character? And coming to that, all this, you know, the talk about identity, my character is the captain of a ship with 60 plus people on it, and she has to be the captain. She can't let her guard down. She always has to be the one in charge. She's the one in top. All the problems stop with her. And the identity that she then starts to discover is when the romantic interest of the book shows up. She's a noblewoman. She is hired the ship out. And so she's not part of the crew. And so it becomes a different relationship dynamic, and there becomes a different identity that they're having to kind of figure out for each other, because there's also the noblewoman has lived so long with this identity of having to be the perfect noble but she doesn't want to be just the perfect noble woman. She wants to be a scientist. She wants to research magic. She wants to go out and effect change. And she got punished and sent off to a remote port town to get her out of the way. But she's still fighting against that. And there's just a lot of friction and conflict and growth as both of them are figuring out their identities in relation to each other. And when they sometimes have backslides and they let the old, the apparent rift of, the common born pirate hunter versus the noble woman. And, it causes friction, and even calling back to the happy for now. It's the book doesn't have a saccharine ending. It's there's a lot of societal pressures that they're dealing with as well about their relationship. It goes even beyond the fact that it's the same gender, that it's an FF relationship. So going into why did I write it? I thought it was interesting and was going to tell a good story. And that was, and it was a story not like I've seen commonly elsewhere.
Miski?
I was thinking about something, and I hope it's still on topic, but there's a saying that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I honestly think that part of the problem is that this world hasn't learned from its own history. There's and the funny thing is what they don't seem to understand is that there's always got to be somebody at the bottom of the totem pole. And instead of understanding the purpose of a totem, they keep trying to push somebody down. It's people of color, it's people who are gay, it's women, and it just goes and goes and goes. Ironically, I learned from my own heritage that the strongest person is at the bottom of the totem because it holds up the rest of the totem. So there are people in this, especially this country, they keep trying to push you down, but what they have yet to realize historically is that the man and woman that they push to the bottom becomes so much stronger. And so in my stories, I try to show that, you throw me to the wolves, I'll come back leading the pack. And I think, because I'm trying to keep it on writing, that if we continue to do that, history will roll around again. A long time ago, they started letting people of color go to school because they wouldn't learn anyway. And now we're captains of industry. Then it was, oh, for God's sake, let girls go to school. It'll keep them busy. It'll keep them out of trouble. Now women are captains of industry. And I laugh when, you discover somebody who's been the CEO of some corporation suddenly comes out as gay because it's the new silk bag. Now it's the new thing. I think that in this world, the lady doth protest too much. I think that sometimes what makes people uncomfortable is not what they see in you, but what they see in themselves because of you.
Oh, fear is what it all boils down to.
Exactly. And I think a lot more people are, as my granddaughter says, on the spectrum, then will admit it, hence me turning my boyfriend gay because I broke up with him. I didn't turn him gay, he was always gay. I'm probably going to break a lot of hearts in my next Don't Ask, Don't Tell book, because a very essential character to the series is going to come out as trans. So I get it, Rich. I've been doing a ton of research. And Shane, I'm going to be picking your pocket.
As long as you don't kill the dog, we're fine.
That's very Miski.
I will kill what needs to die. And that's that.
Don't tell Miski how to write her books, Jim.
Yeah, because I got a mama in my book that'll shoot. Oh, I can't say that. It's not my turn. Anyway, she will shoot you. But I think that if this is the world, this is your corner of it, and this is all that you control. Gay, straight, black, white, American, Indian, Russian, Chinese, this is all you control. And I can tell you from experience that controlling your response to evil, because evil is always going to exist, but controlling your response to it is what takes the wind out of their sails. And I probably totally lost the question, but
I think I did
that's
too.
my
Don't feel
story,
bad.
and I'm sticking to it.
Well,
I did too.
It's a good question.
so, but here's kind of the last thing I want to throw out there, because we dove in some fairly heavy topics so far tonight for a lighthearted conversation. What have we missed? So TL, what have we missed tonight? What have we not talked about you would like to have talked about tonight?
Allies being true allies. Back to the silk purse. I think some are saying that they're true allies, and they're honestly not. They're out there to make a buck. It is a money-making genre if done right. But if you're gonna talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. If you want to be an ally, you need to be out there doing more. There are centers opening up. Gosh, there's 2 out here by me getting ready to open up that I never in a million years would have imagined would be there. I'm jumping on the volunteer bandwagon. I think with more negativity coming back into limelight for the community, there needs to be more allies jumping back in, because now things are going to be taken away from the kids. They're not going to have the outlet. They're not going to have the ability to be true to themselves and explore who they are. They're going to be living repressed lives they didn't choose for themselves. They're going to be forced into a box they don't fit into, and it's not going to go well. Only way that we're going to be able to help control the suicide, I mean, the numbers are just astronomical, is to get out there and educate, not take the education away. And I think that needs to be a big focus and a big push going forward.
Richard, what have we not covered so far that you would like to dive into?
I think what I just want to bring up is the idea of intersectionality, is that people have, this goes back into identity, people have a lot of identities. And I think that part of the truth and what I love seeing is when it's not just, someone's just not the gay character, that you have the characters that are just much more rounded out. They have the different aspects of them that are all kind of having to come into the mix and play. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that have intersectionality, and they need to be seen too, and they need to be able to see themselves in characters too. So that's just kind of the thing I want to bring up there is just, being able to, it's fun to see more stories that are doing more than just tokenism and hitting check boxes.
Miski, what's the one thing we haven't talked about tonight that you really want to make sure we at least talk about?
I'm going to steal from Richard because tokenism. I remember when there was the token Black person, and they were always either the maid or the butler. And the woman was always the little woman. And if a character was gay, there was no doubt in your mind, because they were all limp-wristed and talked 17 octaves, like their shorts were 8 sizes too tight. The women, and I actually remember seeing these things though, women had to express themselves in a much more masculine fashion. And more importantly, the whole idea that you can't have a fiction book or a romance book without blatant sex every 3rd page. And I'm not knocking people who enjoy that or write it, but I think that the whole, like Richard said, the whole tokenism thing, to make it obvious that you're writing, gay fiction or gay romance or gay whatever, or female. I think that, and I hope that one day we just come to the place where all books are either fiction, romance, science fiction, and the characters simply are who they are.
All right, Shane, you're going to get the last word on this one. What haven't we jumped into?
Drag queens.
I mean, we could talk. It is Pride is coming up. I'm probably not going because I really just hate standing in the heat and watching parades, but I understand the importance of it. And I think that, go to Pride, be an ally, support, meet people, talk to people. Richard has Falstaff Pride shirt on right now. Just go have a good time. Have an experience. It's wonderful and it's fun and it's usually filled with joy and love, and it will probably unless you get really drunk and wind up passing out on the street, it's going to wind up being one of the best days of your year. So go to Pride. It's I hear some LGBT people say, I'm not sure why we still do this. And I hear other LGBT people say we do it because, and it doesn't matter. We do it because we still have to, honestly, right? So even though from somebody's experience and they're who they are, maybe they don't see that, but it doesn't matter. We do it because we still have to, because we still have to fight for our rights. We still have to fight for equality. We still have to fight for job security, housing security, like the list goes. Don't live in Florida right now, so go to Pride, be an ally. And if you're LGBTQIA, go, because it's still important that we do this at this point. Hopefully one day, perhaps it won't be, but that day is not now. So go have fun at Pride and do your thing.
Hey, Shane, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that part of the issue, especially for younger people, gay and straight, is that they really don't understand the history of the Pride Parade?
I find actually had a conversation very recently about this, Miski. Yes, to an extent. And I think it's amazing that their lives are so much more different than mine was, right? Um, when you, I wasn't, I was a baby when, you know, the 70s really happened, to be honest. But, you know, I understand the importance of Stonewall and all of the other riots that happened in the 70s for equality, because I did live the 80s. ACT UP had to do its thing because people were dying and no one cared. Like, there's so much history that I had to experience, you had to experience, we all had to live through, right? That, isn't it wonderful that there are children out in the world right now that live in the right place that doesn't have to worry in the same way that we did? I mean, that the fact that Heartstopper is on Netflix, and if you haven't watched it, you really should. It's amazing. It's just a joyful, loving look at the fact that that even exists makes me happy. You know, like that. I see children of friends of mine now who have come out, and it's once again, it depends on where you came out, right? But it's just not always a thing. It's just, oh yeah, I'm gay. Great. You know, like, their friends don't care, their parents don't care. And how far we've come that we can live in a world that there are people who are experiencing this, but we have to also remember that not everyone is.
Right.
So, and it's not, and their experience isn't my experience. It's not TL's experience. It's right. So we all have to open our mind and our hearts that everyone's experience is different. And it depends on so many factors: where you live, what kind of, I mean, it even depends on the politics that surround you, right? On the religious aspect of your life that surrounds you. Like, there's so much that comes into terms with that identity, once again, that word, but to live in a time where there are young people living their life openly and without fear, oh, I mean, just, that's marvelous. And it makes me happy to be able to know that there are people out there experiencing that, and they should go to Pride.
Yes.
Full circle. Damn it.
I was a teenager during Stonewall. And the reason I asked you that is because, for instance, every year we reenact the March Across the Bridge in Selma, and things like that. So I often wonder if the Pride Parade has done its own damage to, but it's
I mean, has it lost
kind of like
its...
Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras started out serious, and now it's just so much fun. But
yeah, I mean,
that's why
the Pride Parade has, I think, become much more of I mean, and I'm sure, once again, not all Pride Parades are the same. I know here in LA, I don't know who is in charge of it, but it is the slowest parade in the history of parades. And I just can't believe that that's the case, but it just takes forever for it to happen. And there's these giant spaces in between. And I'm like, okay, I know somebody could have done this a little bit better.
Go for it, Shane.
It is, no. but it is, you know, I mean, it has just become, I think that it has lost, depending on where you are, maybe a little bit of the history of why we do it. I'm sure not all places. I remember New York's still had, even though it was this bright, joyous floats of strippers and bars going down the street, also there was also a lot of other things that was a part of that parade that kind of gave it some levitas as to why we were doing it, you know.
But that's because that's where it happened,
right?
I think, you know. I remember Stonewall, and so I think they do it that way because that's where Stonewall actually occurred. And
I'm sure that it just depends on the city that you're in terms of what the parade means to, you know, LA's is fun. But it also has some really wonderful things in it. I mean, the P flag, the giant amount of P flag members that walk in that parade with their children of all ages is a moment that always, you know, gets me right here. And I'm sure that section of the parade is probably the same all across the nation, right? Like I'm sure there's a giant, well, a contingency of P flag in almost every pride parade. And I think, you know, that always makes my heart happy.
Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time tonight to do, I think, a really great deep dive into the idea of identity, the ability and the freedom to explore who you are. I think the fact that we all create fiction that lets us both explore ourselves and what we're doing, but also hopefully puts a tool in the hands of kids, adults, and everybody else that lets them also explore who they are and also challenge who they are. And I think that's really the important thing that everybody here does, is create stories that makes them look at themselves and look at the world around them. So I want to thank everybody for joining tonight for this conversation. But before we get out of here, let's make sure that everybody knows where to find you, follow you, and stalk you on the social media, you know, websites, and, you know, what is that latest thing that they do need to add to that to be read pile and dive into a fun exploration. So Richard, how about you?
So Richard Fife, richardfife.com, Conflict Born by Richard Fife. It's on the Zon and Barnes & Noble. I also would like to take a second to plug the convention I helped run in October called Multiverse Convention in Atlanta. It is a convention that is dedicated to being a safe space for all geeks of all stripes and colors and creeds to come and be able to feel safe and enjoy their geekdoms and be fun. You can check it out at multiversecon.org.
And I absolutely do encourage everybody to come check out Multiverse. It is a fantastic event, a fantastic convention, and you can get to it because it's in Atlanta. It's still in Atlanta, which means, you know, by the time you get there, it's another 12 hours to get to the hotel, but, you know, it's still Atlanta. Miski?
hi, I'm miskiharris.com. I'm on Facebook. I have a group, Miski's Mischief Makers. Everything else can be found on Linktree. My next upcoming book that is actually part of a anthology, The Sisters Grimm, where each of us takes a Grimm's fairy tale and rewrites it in our own special way. Yes, Tammy, be afraid. I'm doing the juniper tree.
And, you know, we're going to have to do a hot off the press just for the anthology, right?
Yes.
Shane, how about you?
You can find me a few different places, typically Shane Morton author, across most platforms. You can also find my Facebook group, which is pretty fun and active, at Shane's Sweet and Salty Readers. And you can always go to shanekmorton.com for a website that's updated a little later than it should be, but still it does get updated. My next book is coming out May 27th. So by the time this comes out, it will have released. It is called The Dark Half. It is book one in what will be a 2-book series that tells the story of a boy who discovers, it is a fantasy romance. It's a boy who discovers that he was born with both light and dark magic, and the story explains why that is the case. It has alien worlds, demons, light and dark fighting for the balance of the universe.
And TL?
I can be found at tltravis.com. I have several groups, but the main one that is LGBT is All Colors of the Rainbow. And also the rest of my links are on Linktree as well. I actually have a release next week on my birthday, May 26th, called Heat. It's part of the ABCs of Love series. And it is a small town, gay for you, demisexual. I'm 30 years old, didn't think I could ever love anybody, yet here you are type book. So not my usual gritty rock stars, but something light and fluffy and just fun to read, to learn about someone exploring themselves at a later age in life.
And I've had the pleasure of being your host tonight, Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, authoressentialsworkshops.com, the Speculative Fiction Academy, and of course, your ConTinual. And we will see everybody else again soon. And everybody have a fantastic Pride Month.
Thank you.